Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today I have something pretty neat from my friends over at Banggood. This is the Eachine UZ, that's right, not UZ, I'm in America, UZ65. And this is in the FR Sky version, but that doesn't really matter. So immediately you're greeted with the typical Eachine zip-up case that you normally get. And inside the case, we have the drone. We'll pull this guy out, put it aside. Foam's not solidly attached, so this does become a very useful case as soon as you take this and throw it away. In the case we get a USB charger. It does charge the 2.0 style connectors and the older style. It'll do high volt and standard LiPo charges. With the charger I powered up a couple packs, and at the standard voltage they ended up at roughly about 4.23 volts. And on high volt, they ended up at 4.3637 volts. So not super accurate, but if this is the only charger you have, it's the only charger you have. Who cares then? It comes with 4 of the 300 milliamp high volt Eachine stick batteries. These are, they say they're 4 to 80 C, but really, what does C mean anymore? These all came charged at 3.8 to 3.85 volts, so acceptable storage charge range for each of these. A little inconsistency with the labels. Some are upside down, some are backwards, but in the end, it really does not matter. Also, you do get an extra set of props. One of these horrible screwdrivers. Some extra screws and a prop removing tool, which that's kind of nice to have the extras. Because the props, you may need a set of those. And you get the typical Eachine binding card. The information in here is actually very accurate and is actually set up inside Betaflight. This is exactly correct for your mode switches. So the days of not needing to be in Betaflight to bind this, I think, are probably dead with this model, because I did not find a bind button on it, and the instructions don't mention anything about a bind button. So they are relying on you using the Betaflight CLI to initiate the binding process. But that's honestly probably the easier way to do it, and it gets you into Betaflight, because you should really never trust the stock configuration, because every once in a while one of these flight controllers goes out and didn't get the proper flash or the proper configuration that it should have gotten out of the box. So let's go ahead and set this mess aside and take a look at what we all came here for. Alright, so here we go. We have the Eachine UZ65. Now, they have done something pretty interesting with this little quad. They have managed to cram larger props into the same size chassis as the variable Mobula6. Frame is the same dimensions, but the props, they're a lot bigger, able to handle a lot more airflow going through them. And we'll compare and contrast the two here in a little bit. Like I said, it does come with these 300 milliamp stick batteries with the lead extensions on them, and you're gonna probably need to find more batteries like this rather than batteries with the lead coming out of the top. And I know this is a BT 2.0, but as you can see, you're not going to be able to make that connection there. So you'll either need to extend these or find batteries with a little pigtail on them. As we look through the quad here, the frame is made of a different material than what I'm used to seeing. This looks like some sort of polycarbonate. It's kind of a smoked, translucent looking color. It feels pretty darn durable, very squishy at that, so hopefully that's going to take a lot of the abuse and the bangs and bumps without cracking. Because if it's really hard, it's going to crack, or it's going to be heavy, so you kind of want something that's a little flexible. The motors on this are the Eachine branded 0802 19,000 kV motors. They're a little lower kV than what comes in the Mobula6. This is the Mobula6 Race. These are 0802 25,000 kV motors. And that does make a bit of a difference. But swinging bigger props like this, the 19,000 is probably the right way to go. Not that you have any other options. So let's go ahead and get the top off this guy here. Canopy is held down in 4 spots as opposed to the Mobula6's 3. And hey, if you guys haven't figured it out, I'm going to be doing a lot of comparing to the Mobula6 because that is one of the hottest 65mm quads out there right now. So you may say it's not fair because the prop size is in a different category, but I say they're being marketed together, so that's what I'm going to compare it to. So aboard, this is the Runcam Nano 3. This is the new version of the Nano 3. See, the lens manufacturer quit making lenses. I think they just went out of business entirely for the existing Nano 3. And as you can see, this is one of the original lenses here on the Mobula6. And this is one of the new replacement lenses on the UZ65. The field of view is a bit different between these two, so keep that in mind. Not that you really have any other choice in this matter. Something else they did that's kind of nice, not kind of nice, it's very nice, is they actually have a standalone VTX on this. And it is just kind of sticky taped down. So we can go ahead and pop that off, and you can disconnect your camera. Easier for servicing. And then you can disconnect your VTX here. There you go. You have your whole VTX here. As opposed to, say, I don't know, what's a comparable quad that we can talk about? I don't know. Oh, the Mobula6, where the VTX is built into the flight controller. If any one of those parts fails, you're kind of out of luck here. So this is its own standalone VTX. And the nice thing about this is it does do 25 to 100 milliwatts. So you do get quite a bit more output. Whether it's going to help you out in the long run, not really sure, but it is something to talk about here. So here we have the new flight controller. I am not entirely sure what to call this flight controller because I haven't been able to find it listed anywhere. Maybe by the time I release this video, it'll be out. But the way that they've managed to make room for these extra ducts is they have gone and curved the board. So now you have these little indents all the way around the board. One downside to this new flight controller, let me see if I can pop this up for you without wrecking anything, is now all your motors, oh darn, I'm losing the bobbins. This is going to suck putting it back together. Why do I do this stuff? So as you can see in there, there's no longer any plug headers for the motors. All the motors are direct soldered to the flight controller, which does make serviceability kind of difficult, but not as all lost. You can take the flight controller out and work on the bench. If you remove your motor screws and your props, remove props, then your motor screws, you can weasel your motor out through here and out through the little side hole in the frame here, and then you can take the whole assembly out rather than having to try to figure out how to solder and desolder it from inside the frame. The ESC on this quad is a 5 amp continuous output ESC, so it'll handle up to 5 amps and up to a 6 amp burst. You would hope that if Eachine is speccing these with their own motors in their own build, that everything is kind of specced out properly, which I'm sure it is. But the times you're gonna have to worry about that is if you, I don't know, get a prop wadded up full of hair, or if you're outside, you turtle mode inside of some, I don't know, say some leaves or some sticks, then you might have a little bit of an issue. So just keep that in mind. Just because they paired it up with their own quad doesn't mean the quad cannot draw that much current. It certainly can. So let me go ahead and get this guy back together. I've broken the cardinal rule, and I've already flown this thing because the weather was crap the other day and I just want to fly it around the house. The frame is not perfectly round where the ducts are, and you do end up with a little bit of contact, say right here, where the props kind of rub themselves in. A couple packs, and you get rid of that grinding noise. But just be aware that you will end up with some scuff marks on the inside of the prop ducts, or the inside of the ducts where the props are contacting it. It'll wear itself in. I wouldn't worry about it. And then the other thing is this. The VTX has a UFL on it. Pretty convenient, especially if you want to change this to like maybe a circular polarized antenna or however you want to do it. But as you can see right here in this clip, I didn't hit the gap right. And when I went to arm, well, for some reason my VTX was really bad because I lost the antenna. Here's a picture of what I was looking at. Tell me where the antenna is. Yep, there it is. It's right there. Yeah, it took a little while to find it, but I managed to find it, so I'm certainly going to put some antenna fixing glue on this guy when I put it back together. And I'm going to attach the antenna with this Motiv RC antenna fixing glue. This is the same stuff that manufacturers use. It's pretty good stuff, as long as you can keep it from drying up on you in the tube. There you go. And there we go, all back together. Better than new. For sure, better than new with that little bit of adhesive on there. You can use hot glue if you want. This VTX doesn't generate enough heat to melt the hot glue, which is kind of an issue if you start using like larger VTXs like Unifies and things that, you know, things that have a lot more oomph behind them, but this should be fine. I do like the fact this canopy is pinned in all four corners. It should reduce the jello effect, kind of like what we had on the Mobula6. Yes, I realize this is not the original frame, but just squishing these two, this frame is a lot softer. Just kind of look at the way the frame and the ducts look in comparison. That is a relatively bigger prop inside the same size footprint frame. So these are using 35mm props, and I believe these are 31mm props on the Mobula6. So all right, so let's go ahead and head over to Betaflight, and I'll show you a quick little layout of how this thing came from the factory. All right, so we have our quad connected to our computer, and as you see, it comes with Betaflight 4.1.1 preloaded to it, and the target is going to be the Crazy B F4, and then this one is FR because it has the FR Sky receiver built into it. Coming over to the ports tab, as you see, we have TBS Smart Audio on UART 2. Configuration, it's set as a reverse prop setup, so they're pushing away from the camera. Over here is something that I really don't like, is they have motor stop enabled, and I don't know why these manufacturers always do this. Highly recommend that you re-enable that. I know it's a small quad and it's probably not going to hurt you, but having the motor stop enabled keeps you from knowing that you have armed your quad. So definitely disable that. And as you see here, they have bidirectional D-Shot already set up. D-Shot 600, PID loop, 4K accelerometers on. Arming at 180, which is a good thing to see, but just do know that it is disabling a safety feature. Not that I would ever recommend not setting to 180. Every quad I have that has the accelerometer enabled is set up at 180 there. And the other thing is, so it sets up as FR Sky D, so this is set up to bind to a D8 receiver. If you want to buy it into a D16 receiver, say you're using an access protocol radio, you're going to need to set this to FR Sky X. And if you're in the EU and your radio is recognized as an EU radio to bind in D16, you'll need to go to FR Sky X LBT. I'll leave that alone. The other thing they didn't set is they didn't set the ESC tones. So you can't set up a motor beeper or anything like that, but your ESC will already have like a timer built into it where it'll start beeping on its own. I prefer to disable the timer and make it manual, but that is how they decided to go with it. Power and battery, 4.4 volts. That's good because you won't get the warning for having too much power in your packs if your high volt charge is a little on the high side. 2.9 is the minimum. Warning at 3. That seems about right. This does have a current meter in it, so I'm going to trust that these values are correct. Not that I really use those very often. Failsafe, who cares? PID tuning. The PID tuning is definitely not Betaflight stocks. No, it looks like bone stock filtering. So custom PIDs, their filters, and then this is the rate profile it comes with. This is Betaflight stock. So nothing special here. Move over to the receiver. Again, it's a 8-channel receiver, so your 4 inputs and then your 4 aux channels. Your RSSI is already being fed into the Betaflight OSD without using up an extra aux channel. So that is kind of nice there. So make sure you leave this as disabled. The quad does come set up as TAER. So if that's the configuration you use, if you set up your modes like in the little piece of paper, you shouldn't have to mess with any of this.
And here are the modes. So flip over after crash on aux 4, air mode on aux 2. I don't know where that was. Did I move it? I'll go back. All right. Air mode on aux 2, angle on aux 2, and arm on aux 1. So with your mode switch all the way up, you're going to have rate mode with no air mode. In the middle, you're going to have angle mode with no air mode. And then all the way up, you're going to have rate mode or acro mode. Like rate and acro, those are interchangeable terms, with air mode enabled. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. Adjustments, who cares? Servo, who cares? Motors, as you see, it's already set up to read for bidirectional D-shot. OSD comes minimally laid out, which is nice. The camera on mine is a NTSC camera, so all this extra garbage over here, I'm not too worried about it. If you move around your Betaflight OSD elements and for some reason you can't see them anymore, it's probably because you moved them outside of the field of view. If I were to put all this stuff down here, then nothing would show up because it's technically outside of the range. Video transmitter is set up with the VTX tables pre-configured, which is kind of nice. Sensors, whatever, and black box. There is no black box, so you can save a few CPU cycles by disabling logging. And then we get down to binding. So binding process is very simple. Turn your radio on, set it up for a D8 profile, hit bind on your radio, then come to the Betaflight CLI, type bind, hit tab, because this command changes from time to time. Press enter, give it a few seconds to bind, then type save. And then stop the binding process on your radio and head back to the receiver tab, and you should be good to go. All right, let's take this thing for a flight.
Okay, so I've gone through and I've added motor stop to this model, which I don't know why that was disabled in the first place. It's really kind of a weird thing. But the way the modes work out from the default is your mode switch all the way up, so that's at 1,000 microseconds. It's acro mode without air mode, and then 1500 is angle mode without air mode, and then all the way down, so 2000 would be air mode with acro. And so the reasoning for that is, if you're going to fly, say you're doing something like this, you're flying indoors in acro mode, and you're just racing, you're not doing flippy floppies or anything like that, but you want the rate mode, having air mode enabled really makes the quad overreact when you bounce into little things. So leaving air mode turned off actually makes the quad handle a lot better in the event that you do bump something. It doesn't make it want to just overreact and fly across the room. But with that said, don't try to do flips and rolls or anything where you cut the throttle all the way to zero, because the quad will lose pretty much all authority over the motors, and you'll essentially just kind of flop to the ground if you don't recover in time. So then that's the same concept behind going into angle mode here, is it has no air mode enabled. See how when I bumped into those things, it just redirected the quad. If air mode was enabled with angle mode, it would have thrown my quad across the room, because the PID loop goes nuts and it tries to overcompensate. Now the last mode, so this is at 2000, so switch all the way down, is angle mode with air mode. So now I can drop the throttle to zero and still have authority over the quad, which you can't do without air mode, or at least the throttle up function. You see how it quad overreacts a lot? That's because of air mode. So let's do flip over after crash. Works like a charm. Let's go back up. So, acro with air. See what that's like without air mode. Well, it still kind of works. But here's the deal. If I chop the throttle, I really don't have a whole lot of authority. The quad flies really weird that way. This thing is fast and agile. It's Mobula6 fast, Tiny Hawk 2 stable. Lots of yaw authority. Lots of yaw authority. And my daughter is an absolute trooper for putting up with this crap. And it's amazing she's quiet this long. Oh man, this quad's out flying me. See how the impact was way less severe. Like the quad's reaction to the impact was way less severe. So I'm 3.5 minutes into this pack, and I'm still at only 3.3 volts. Oh boy, my goggles are beeping at me. So the Mobula6 had a weird issue that if you drew the battery down too far, the quad would actually kind of reset itself, as in it will lose whatever settings you have put into it. So I'm going to take one for the team, and I'm going to run this battery right down to nothing, or at least to the point where the quad shuts off, and we'll see what it does. I really hope they fix this issue, because this is a very different flight controller than what came in the Mobula6. Alright, run out of thrust. I'm just gonna keep running it. And at that point, every time I arm it, I'd lose video. And that's it. I think the thing's completely dead.
Telemetry lost.
So, you know, it comes down to the usual question, what do I think of this thing? Well, for 85 bucks, you're getting a lot of quad. You're getting a really nice, solid quad, 4 batteries, a charger, a case. You know, I mean, how can you really go wrong with this? As far as upgrades over the Mobula6, I do think this is probably a better quad than the Mobula6. I kind of wish that they had a higher kV motor version, just so you could be more of a apples to apples comparison. But in general, I think this is a excellent choice. As you can see, I have run in the background here some outdoor acro flying. This thing does acro just fine outside. It's very nimble, very light, plenty of power. Really fun to fly outside, fun to chase your kids around the yard and whatnot. It's small enough that it's not threatening, but you have that extra little bit of meat on the props to push a little more air, a little more control, and quite a bit more stable. I'm really happy with this thing. It's I think the frame and the VTX being separate, it's a nice improvement. It's definitely better than what we've seen so far. The only issues I've had with it is, other than, you know, the antenna popping off like we talked about earlier, I have lost a prop or two in some pretty hard crashes. Hard enough where I definitely would have broken a Mobula6 frame, and the prop went flying off. But you know, frame perfectly fine. I haven't broken anything yet. Not even the little supporting struts down here for the lipo. And then, you know, like I said, the props fell off. But yeah, it's kind of par for the course based on how hard I hit. But anyways, I'm pretty happy with this thing for 85 bucks. I don't think you can really go wrong with it if you're in the market for a 65 millimeter quad. Again, I want to say this was sent to me by Banggood for review. All my opinions here are mine and mine alone, and this is just a sample size of 1. So, you know, this one may be great, and the next 10 out the door might be crap. I don't know, but this one was very good. Oh, and a note on the camera lens. The field of view was a little bit smaller on this, but the picture quality was quite a bit nicer than what I experienced on my Mobula6. Not so much blooming around lights in my living room and things like that. So I do kind of like the lens on this one a little better. It doesn't look anywhere near as good as this guy, but I mean, you know, how can you compare the two? But anyways, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking us out. If you want to really support me, head over to Patreon. I have a Patreon over there. It'll get you early access to some of my videos. It'll get you access to my private room in my Discord server. If you're interested in purchasing this or any other product from Banggood or Get FPV, please check the links in the video description. Those things really help me out, and it justifies these manufacturers sending me more cool stuff to review, to bring to you guys. All right, and I hope you really enjoyed this. I will definitely be comparing the two of these guys. This is the same as this one. I will definitely be comparing these guys going around my track. I have my standard track set up in my basement. This guy is fast. It feels really fast, but we won't know until we get the timer out, and that's what I plan on doing next. All right, folks, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking us out. And if you like what I'm doing here, please like and subscribe. You'd be surprised how many people who watch this aren't subscribers. Just click that button. That's all I ask. And if you really want to help me out, like I said, head over to Patreon, and I would greatly appreciate it. All right, folks, thanks for stopping by, and I will catch you all next time.